No woman can say that they have taken up arms with Hercules to engage in the most paramount mission of their lives, raising, educating, and discipling their children. Sam Sorbo has done this, but also passionately, lovingly pours into others' lives by working to elevate Christian values, inspire hope, and restore the Judeo-Christian American culture. You're listening on Huntington Way Show. We're here to help parents navigate the educational maze. And I'm your host, Yvonne Strachan, author and founder of inspirationalhomeschooling.com. You're listening on Power Talk 1040 AM, 98.5 FM, and 95.7 FM. Please like and subscribe to Power Talk 1040 on YouTube. We're talking with Sam, and we're talking about her and Kevin Sorbo's journey through homeschooling and why Sam is so passionate about advocating for the family unit and for home education. Welcome to the show, Sam.
Thank you so much for having me. I am passionate. It's true.
Yes. And I love that. As I was reading your books, I was just so excited to see that you are so involved with your kids. And sometimes you think about people that are in a position like you are, where you've had acting career and modeling career, and you think, oh, well, maybe they have other people helping them educate the children, but you were doing it and dealing with all the same things that me as a homeschool mom dealt with. So it was just neat to connect with you in that way.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, my son wanted to learn to sing, and I didn't think that he could. So I did outsource the singing lessons because I wanted her to tell him that he couldn't sing. I didn't want to be the one to tell him that he couldn't sing, and she taught him how to sing. So I wasn't above outsourcing, but by and large, a grade school education is perfectly reasonable and within reach for the average parent to empower their children with. In other words, you went through grade school. I know you don't feel capable of teaching a first or second or third or fourth or fifth grader, but in fact, you are. And the great thing that people tend to not even think through because they're so mystified and horrified by the very idea of home education. The thing that they don't think through is all the answers are in the books. The teachers don't even know the stuff typically necessarily until the day before they're teaching it, right? And so it's a lot easier than you might imagine to teach your own kids.
Yeah, absolutely. I had that experience when I first started homeschooling. I was really nervous about it, but having the resource in front of me and seeing, oh, well, I can do this. It tells me right here what I need to teach and guides me in how I need to teach it.
Yes, it's really that simple.
Yes. So, what led you and Kevin to decide to homeschool in the first place?
Well, I'm an academic, and the academics were not good at this lovely little school that we moved to because it was such a great school. And so I just started paying attention, and I was not thrilled with what was going on in the classroom, with what was going on with the academics. I ended up doing book report with my son every day after school. And I just said to myself, my gosh, I mean, I'm homeschooling. I don't like what they want me to do with him. I might actually be better off if I chose what to do with him rather than them, because their stuff is crap. Really, what they put on the kids to do in school is by and large not great. Let's put it that way. And so I guess I was just a little bit too exigent. And I said to Kevin, and also added to that, the stuff that he was coming home with, the influence that other children were having on him, and the personality that he was developing as a result of interactions in the school, I also did not like. And so I said to Kevin, I think I could fail at homeschooling and he'll still be better off. That's what I said, and I still stand by it. It's now even more than before. That's the case. Like you
Oh,
could
yeah.
literally just fail at home educating your child. but your child would still be better off never having set foot in a school classroom.
Yes, and this is the reality is there's a doctrine at schools. And so if their doctrine is counter our doctrine, we literally have what, 29 minutes for the average male, for the average dad, and an hour for the average mom to counteract that. And do you think we're going to be able to bring back that Christian heritage and that Christian thinking?
Well, of course I don't.
Right.
What I will say is that the educators convinced us that religion is not education. And yet, there is no non-religious school. Every school is a religious school. They've just convinced us that the thing that I'm calling religion is not a religion, but it is. And it's a religion that is counter the Christian religion. It's a religion that's counter every other so-called religion also, but basically it is counter the Christian religion because it seeks to enslave rather than to set free. And the Christian religion is, as far as I know, really the only religion that seeks to set people free, to pursue their own happiness, let's say. So yeah, it's too bad that they got a hold of the schools. They did. That they convinced us that they were not religious. It's like the greatest trick the devil ever played was to convince the world that he didn't exist. Well, the
Yes.
greatest trick that they ever played was to convince us that they didn't believe in God. Oh, they believe in God. They just don't believe in the Christian God. They believe
Yes.
they are God. And that's the whole thing right there. And so if you're Christian and you have children, the last thing you want to do is surrender them to people who don't share your values. And there's no way for you to know unless you like take every teacher out to lunch, every single teacher that your child is exposed to. And even then you don't know because they could be lying. I had a young friend who was attending a small Christian college, and she had a professor that she really enjoyed, and they would have lunch on occasion. And it took a couple of lunches before she figured out that that professor was, in fact, an atheist. And so one day at lunch, she kind of, questioned her about it, said, it seems to me you must be an atheist if you hold this, that, the other view. And the professor said, well, yeah, I am. Like, isn't that natural? Like, and the girl said, but why are you teaching here at a Christian college? And the professor said, oh, yeah, this is my mission field.
Oh, wow. That's deep. I
Go.
look at the Supreme Court 2001 case where it's the Good News Club versus Milford Central School. I don't know if you've heard of this, but back in 2001, they ruled that you can't discriminate against religious speech. Well, this really opened the doors to religious organizations to choose to operate after school clubs. So you know where I'm going with this. There's the Satanic Temple in Satan, Massachusetts that gets a hold of this, and they start these Satan clubs, after school clubs, and they're legal and they have donors and they consider it a religion or a lack of Christian religion,
Right.
because it's a different doctrine. And so people don't realize this. This is everywhere. I mean, we're looking at California, Illinois, Tennessee, Ohio, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, and in a little town in Colorado, little town on the Western Slope. And people don't think about it being there. And this isn't just in after school state clubs. There's all kinds of clubs that are really teaching our kids, and they're telling our kids to go, okay, well, just tell your mom and dad whatever they're comfortable with. They're in between us and they're keeping secrets.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if here's the thing, I think that parents, so I did a conference over the weekend, and one of the people at the conference said to me, because he's on board, he gets it. He says, the problem is that people don't believe you. They don't believe that all of this is happening. They don't believe it's in their school. I remember I spoke at an event to a group of people who were all staunch conservatives. And so they understand the left right politicking and the attack that's happening, or attacks, I should say. And And I told them the schools are conveyor belts of slavery. The schools are conveyor belts of Marxism and communism. And that's why 80% of teenagers graduating high school today are professed socialists, because they are taught that socialism is grandpa with candy and communism is grandpa with candy also. And so they don't see anything wrong with it. And they're not being taught discernment, and they're not being taught. I mean, I can go through the list of all the things that they aren't being taught, which would empower them to make better decisions. But they're not. And at the end of the speech, these two people, this husband and wife, came up and talked to me and said, that was just great. We're so on board with what you're saying. We know this is going on. It's a terrible thing. And I said, oh, so you homeschool your child? And they said, oh, no, he goes to a really good public school.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I said, define good. And they said, well, it's where we met. And I said, but that doesn't mean a thing. That doesn't make it good. That he has the same locker that you had 30 years ago or 20 years ago, that doesn't make it good. The books are different. The teachers are different. The administration is different. Everything that matters is completely different than when you went to school. Everything
Absolutely.
that matters. And you're talking about how it's pervasive, how it's in this state and that state and all the different states. Well, of course, because it's coming from the teaching colleges. And they send their students, their disciples, out into the world to disciple the world. And their disciples are young children who don't know any better, who don't know how to defend themselves. At this point, parents who send their children to school are basically engaging in child abuse or complicit in the child abuse that's going on in the schools. You cannot tell me that telling a child that he can choose to change his gender is nothing short of child abuse.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to continue this conversation when we come back. Thank you for joining us. Welcome back to the Huntington Way Show. You're listening on Power Talk 1040 AM, 98.5 FM, and 95.7 FM. Please like and subscribe to Power Talk 1040 on YouTube. I'm your host, Yvonne Strachan, and I am speaking with Sam Sorbo. We're talking about what's going on in these schools, and she has some good resources that will help you. Welcome back, Sam.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, we were just talking about how there is so much indoctrination going on, and it's not the indoctrination that we are necessarily wanting as parents. Now, a lot of times we are talking about this going all across the US, but do parents really realize that they are being left out of it?
You mean they're being left out of the conversation between the teacher and the student?
Yes.
Yeah, I think they don't. I think they think that they somehow are exempt. I think they think somehow their child is inured against it. I think they think that they have meaningful conversations with their children. Their children tell them everything that's going on, and so therefore they know everything that's happening, and they are well informed and in charge. And unfortunately, that's not the case. Typically, not the case. More than likely, not the case. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. Look, I homeschooled my kids. I have a very strong relationship with all of my children. And they kept things from me. And I found out later, and I'm like, what? You kept that from me? And I thought that I knew everything because I homeschooled. So we were together all the time. Like, I don't know where they found the time to not tell me things. You know what I mean? And so if you think, oh no, I've got it covered. I know everything that happens with my kids when they are away from me for 7.5 hours every day. And then, spend time with their friends, spend the night over at their friend's house, go to the mall with their friends, and you think you know what's going on. I don't know. I think you've got a screw loose. That's my opinion. I can't imagine why you would think you know everything that's going on, because your child is that upfront with you all the time. What are you smoking? Like, don't be ridiculous. And so I guess if you don't send your child to, well, here's the thing. It doesn't, it doesn't matter. What they're doing to children in the schools is child abuse. And we ought to be calling it out for what it is. And then, there's another thing that I've been working on, Yvonne, that I've been toying with. This idea that we hate children, this culture that we're in right now hates children. We tear them limb from limb inside the womb. We celebrate that. We march in the streets for the right to tear a baby's limb from limb inside a mother's womb and post delivery. This is like something that's absolutely championed in the marketplace of ideas. But not only that, we rob them of their childhood. We steal them from their parents. So therefore we take parenting away from them. This is why so many parents today and families today, the parents have no idea what they're doing because they weren't parented. So how are they supposed to know how to raise a child? So they think it's perfectly normal to send a child away from them for 7.5 or 8 or 9 or 10 hours a day, because you've got preschool care, you've got post-school care, after school, all the stuff. And we think, well, that's just childhood. And I'm here to tell you it's not. It's a perversion of childhood, but it's almost like we begrudge them the freedom of being a child, the freedom of exploring nature, just to explore it, just to discover the great outdoors, just to discover, what it's like to poke at an anthill. And I think that's sad. I will say, I home educated my first two. I schooled them for real. Like I basically did school at home with my first two. And it wasn't until my third child that she taught me that she teaches herself. And so this is the new paradigm shift that I'm trying to get people to understand. This isn't the black and white that basic schooling is. That's like black and white. When you bring your children home and you teach them to teach themselves, you're entering into Dolby sound Technicolor as opposed to a black and white silent film. It's a completely different, it's an entire paradigm shift. We are not talking about homeschooling. We are not bringing school into the home and making you the teacher. We are empowering the child to be his or her own teacher. Notice I said his or her own teacher, to pursue truth, beauty, and goodness on his or her own terms. And when you do that, even if you're only marginally successful, you don't have to be like fully successful. You can screw it up wildly. But when your goal is that, you will watch them take off like rockets, like rockets. And children are like rockets. School is gravity. They're like shooting stars.
Yeah. And I think when you look at a child, they're all unique in their own ways. And even if you have a disabled child, they are created unique for a purpose, on purpose. And we need to embrace that and encourage them and hold them up and help them along the way and open those doors rather than suppress them. I totally agree with you, Sam. So,
Yep.
I know you talked about really the post-secondary education that many of us have gone through, the teachers have gone through, and how this has just played a big part in what is being done today, because really they were indoctrinated and, like you said, become disciples as well. And now they're spreading this throughout all the way into kindergarten, preschool even. So let's unpack a few ways that these schools contribute to this breakdown of society.
Well, okay, the first way is they remove the child from the home earlier and earlier, younger and younger. And it's funny because somebody just sent me a TikTok video, it's a compilation of wee little children, toddlers with very few words, young children getting picked up for the first time from preschool. And every single one of them was like bawling their eyes out when they caught sight of their parents, like they'd been abandoned. And they were so relieved to be saved. Now, I leave the house and I come back. I have a very small dog. She's 9 pounds. And every time I come home, she's like, this is she's celebration, right? Little kids are like that. In fact, this particular breed of dog, she's a Brussels Griffon. The sort of tagline of this dog is, if you want a toddler for the next 16 years, get this breed of dog. And I think we do children such a horrible injustice with the phrase, well, they're resilient. Do you remember
Mm.
that phrase? I remember
Yep.
the first time I used it in regards to children, it was Oprah Winfrey was interviewing a Hollywood star. I don't remember who was in the middle of a divorce. And she said, and how are the kids? And then she answered her own question because she knew she had just stepped on a minefield. She said, I mean, they're resilient, right?
Mm.
And I look at that and I go, what a disdain for children, for their emotions, for their feelings. We've got whole fields of study about childhood trauma, memories, memory suppression, uh, all of that stuff. And yet here's somebody who has one of the biggest megaphones in the world saying, well, children are resilient. Like, meh, they'll figure it out. Adults can't figure it out, but children, oh yeah, they'll be fine.
Mhm.
It's absurd. We know that it's absurd on its face, but it's just sort of pushed over on us and it's washed over on us. And so, I went to school, you went to school. So I thought, well, my kids are going to go to school. Like, why wouldn't I? But it's time to wake up
Mhm.
because they're out for your children, and I say this and it kind of gets me into trouble, but I don't care because it's the truth.
Yeah.
They want to have sex with your children. And if you surrender your children to another authority, they will have their way with your children because that's how it works now. So I was just presenting on a panel, and one of the panelists is a tracker for human trafficking and child sex abuse or child sex exploitation, I guess. And he said that they posted they created a profile and they put this profile online of a 15-year-old girl, and within an hour he had 500 leads. And
Wow.
I think it's getting worse. I don't think it's getting better. I think your children are in danger. Without a doubt, your children, I don't care where you live. I don't care how tight a community you live in. Today, I wouldn't, and we went through this whole thing about, oh, I'm not going to allow my child to cross the street. I won't allow them to take the bus, whatever. We live in a world now where you don't know where it's coming from. Miami in my state is like one of the hubs of child trafficking in the world now, like super hub, like, and that is not a brag, you know what I mean? Like that's just the
Right.
way it is. So if you want to protect your children and preserve your relationship with your children, you don't send them away from you. But then the flip side of it is if you keep them home and you teach them yourself, it's so much easier than sending them to school. And it's so much better for them than sending them to school. Like, of course, the difference has to be starker than night and day. Of course it is. So if you just think about it, not only is it horrible to send your children to school, but the home education thing is like so much better than you could ever imagine. So it's like sending your children to school is like a hot pile of dog poop, but keeping them home and educating them yourself is like an ice cream sundae. Which do you want
Absolutely.
to eat?
Yep.
Like which one? Pick one.
Yep. Exactly. This is the reality. Home education restores family bonds, relationships, discernment, virtues, and faith. So, Sam, I have some of your books
Oh.
here, amazing books. Teach from Love. This is a great devotional that Sam wrote, and you can use it every day of your school year with your kids and bring them to the Lord. Do this
I
first thing in
had
the morning.
I had a girl approach me at this conference that I was just at. She was 8 years old, and she said, "I just love your book, Teach from Love. We're going through it the second time now." That made me
That's
really
great.
happy.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good. And then this one, we've been talking about this pretty much the whole episode is They're Your Kids, guys. You have to get this book. This will help you just stay the course, keep homeschooling. And then Words for Warriors, which is also amazing. So thank you, Sam. This has been Yvonne Strachan, today's host on the Huntington Way Show, where we support you in educating your kids. Thank you for joining us.